Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Finley, and I cover the dealer beat for Ward's Auto. Now I would like to introduce today's presenter. Matt Weinberg is the Senior Vice President of Consumer Experience for Drive Motors, a digital firm that helps dealers sell cars 24/7. Matt has more than 20 years of leadership experience in the automotive industry. He has consulted for more than 100 dealership groups on internet sales processes and e-commerce. He has been an advisor for some of the biggest dealership groups, including Lithia, Asbury, and Hendricks, which are among the top 10 in the Ward's Auto Mega Dealer 100 ranking, which, by the way, is due out next month. I think you'll find his presentation informative and worth your while. And with that, here's Matt.
All right, thanks, Steve. So today we're going to talk about a presentation that we've entitled "The Future is Clear: How to Increase F&I Profit in the Transparency Economy." As consumers, you and I both really experience. And so as we walk through this, I want you to keep in mind that from a consumer perspective, that car buyers feel the same way. And so we'll talk about that as we walk through. The agenda that I've laid out is see the future clearly. What does the future look like, particularly in the automotive retail environment? I want to bust what I call the negotiation myth. We'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about how we drive profits when being transparent. We're going to talk about how that actually helps us earn more loyalty from our customers. And then, of course, we'll share next steps for those of you that want to learn more about how you can partner with Drive Motors. But I want to actually start by asking the question, how many buyers fill out a lead form on a website? All right, so the answer to the question, how many buyers fill out a lead form, is 26%. So only 26% of car buyers fill out a lead form. Well, that means 74% don't. And by the way, we know in the industry, we've seen that the number of form leads on dealer websites is increasing for several years now, right? We know a big reason for this is because the last time that customer filled out a form lead, dealers did a really good job of follow-up. And dealers can always improve on follow-up, but there's a lot of follow-up that happens. And so from a consumer perspective, that really changes the dynamic from an internet perspective. One of the big reasons why we like shopping online is because it provides us anonymity. And so we've seen form leads drop. And as we talk about anonymity and we talk about the way the customer wants to buy cars, one of the things that I've done historically in role play is we've talked about which percentage of the car buyer we want to actually work into our role play at dealerships. Let me back up for 1 second and point out that TrueCar, as an example, they're focused on 70% of the car buyers. They're focused on the 70% that don't want to pay more than their neighbor. And so how that relates to my conversation about role play is when I would go into some of these large dealer groups and large dealerships and do role play, working on internet sales process, when we did role play, we always had what I called the 20% rule, meaning that we did not do role play using the 20% of car buyers who are going to beat the crap out of the dealership, get the best price, but then give bad CSI and return in the next day or two and complain about their experience. Instead, we want it to either be the 70% that TrueCar is focused on, the 70% that don't want to pay more than their neighbor, right? They just don't want to get quote-unquote screwed. And then there's the 10% historically that we typically called laydowns. I think that number, that 10% is actually dropped at this point. But we didn't want to be the laydown. Definitely didn't want to be the 20%. And that's really relevant because as a dealership, we need to shift our focus away from the 26% who are willing to fill out a lead form and focus on the 74% that are actually looking for anonymity. because it's a much bigger base to sell cars from. And so that will help us actually start to see the future more clearly and understand that we actually have big changes that are taking place in the auto retail area. I had a meeting earlier today with another company that we're looking at partnering with, and one of their executives said to me, hey, I've been in this business for 20 years, and the business has changed more in the last 3 years than the previous 20 years. And one of the other executives jumps in and goes, well, yeah, and it's changed more in the last year than the previous 5 years. So we see these huge shifts happening. And so as dealers, we need to be really focused on how does this impact my business and how can I actually use it to my advantage? So I want to share three numbers, 2 billion, 3,000, and 83%. And you're probably wondering, what does that really have to do with our conversation, right? What does $2 billion IPO valuation from Carvana have to do with my dealership? By the way, Carvana yesterday, or in the last couple of days, passed $3 billion in valuation, and it's actually at an all-time high, or at least it was yesterday. I haven't had a chance to look at it today. But Carvana is moving into our space. They're eating into dealership margin. They're telling a story that is negative to dealerships, right? I don't know if you've seen their ads, but their ads say, skip the dealership. And I've just seen new ads recently that are even stronger in terms of its negativity towards dealerships. That new ad says, ditch the dealership. And so what are they doing? They're focusing on the 70%, the 74% that are looking for anonymity and want to buy the car the way they buy everything else, online with complete anonymity. And as a dealer, the big misconception is, if I go down this path, I'm going to actually lose gross. That's the misconception that we're going to talk about today. And then we've got Warby Parker, right? Warby Parker is not in our business. They're not in our industry, but they have they have entered what was considered by many an impenetrable and definitely saturated market in the eyeglass industry. And the way that they did this was by changing the consumer experience. They did not come into the market and say, hey, let's try and compete on price. And as dealers, we are so often sucked into that hole that is a competition to earn business on price and not on customer experience and adding value to the way that our customer buys our product. And lastly, from a recent Cox Automotive study, we see that 83% of consumers say that they want to do part of their car buying process online. That doesn't necessarily mean that they want to do all of it online. 83% they want to do at least some of it online. And by the way, it is quickly ramping up in terms of how many people are saying that they're ready to purchase completely online. But the point is that the change is starting to happen now. And we need to get in front of it. And I'll give you a quick example from my own experience that ties into our conversation of transparency. Before joining Drive Motors, I spent 7 years at a company, Showroom Logic, and we built and sold that company to a large media company, Raycom Media. But 7-8 years ago, we were the first company in the digital advertising space to allow dealers access and transparency and ownership of their Google AdWords account, of their Bing account, and then later into their Facebook account. Dealers in droves flocked to this idea of having transparency in their ad buying, because it was the first time they could actually see, oh, this is how much money is actually being spent on the media spend or on the ad buy. It actually propelled us to become the 26th fastest growing company in America at one point. We capitalized on that growth curve. Now, today, most of you, I hope, have access to your Google AdWords account or to your Bing account and to your Facebook account through your providers. But that wasn't the case back then. As others entered this space, we became a little bit more of a me too, right? Because we were no longer the only one offering that transparency. The reason that is relevant to our conversation today is because right now, if you look at your dealer competitors that you are competing with, most of them are not offering a full, transparent online buying experience. That's going to change in the next couple of years. One of the things that I talk to my dealers that I consult with all the time is that, hey, the customer that's in your showroom today, right? So while you're here on this webinar, there's somebody in your store buying a car. They're buying it in what I would call the traditional manner. And by the way, I consider the traditional manner to include internet leads, BDC calls, phone ups, right? That is now traditional. 20 years ago, I was taking internet leads from AOL. They were faxing it to me. I didn't even get an email address tied to it, right? But that was 20 years ago. That is now the traditional car buying process. So the person that's buying via the traditional car buying process today, right now in your showroom, the next time they buy a car, more likely than not, they are going to buy online. And so there's actually a limited amount of time for you to take advantage of this growth curve. There's a limited amount of time before most dealers in your market are going to be offering this. So we want to really keep that in mind. And if we look at the history, right, we've seen this. If we look at the history of the industry over the last few decades, and I just touched on this a little bit, but in the 90s, we were buying internet leads. And I remember being in the dealership and being told, that's just a fad, that's not going to continue. And then in the early 2000s, I started helping dealers with websites, and it was the same story, right? Why did we move to websites? Because we wanted to take control instead of buying leads from Auto by Tel and Dealix and Stone Age. We wanted to generate our own leads. And the same thing happened. We had dealers telling us, no, I don't need a website. That's not going to be a thing. And then we started to focus even more on the consumer experience, and we started offering partial online buying tools like trade-in appraisal. And the same thing happened. I had dealers tell me, you can't appraise a trade if the car's not in front of you. This is not possible. Today, I challenge you to find a dealership without an online appraisal tool for trades on their website. And so this next evolution is happening even faster, and it's the ability to do a full online checkout on the dealer's website. It's changing rapidly. More and more customers want to buy online. In 2015, 35% of those surveyed said that they would do a complete car buying purchase online. Last year, that number was up to 42%. So we see that this is continuing to change, right? This is continuing to evolve. And another interesting study recently said that 9 out of 10 customers said that they're more likely to buy from a dealership that offers online checkout. 9 out of 10 say they're more likely to buy from a dealership that offers online checkout. Now, again, I just showed you a slide that said 42% are ready to buy online. I want to unpack that a little bit. 9 out of 10, when asked, say that they're more willing to buy from a dealership that offers online. That doesn't mean they're ready to use it. What we see is people will come onto the dealership website that offers online checkout. They'll play around with it, but they start to have some questions. Is this really a fair price, right? Is this a transparent price? Can I trust this price? So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I think part of this conversation and the gap between how many people say they want to buy online and are more likely to buy from a dealership online, and then the fact that we're seeing that even 42% say they're willing to buy online, but not that many are. Like for our best dealers, we're seeing, 5+% of their total sales volume is happening in online checkout. So what's the discrepancy? Why is this happening? And I think that this comes to what I call the negotiation myth. Dealers typically believe that car buyers want to negotiate. I have dealers tell me this all the time. And I'm here to tell you that's a myth. Car buyers don't want to negotiate. They believe they have to. They think they have to. We have that if you don't negotiate, that you're not getting a fair deal. We've trained them over decades that you have to negotiate when you buy a car. They don't want to do it. They think they have to do it because we train them to do it. In fact, I had a dealer recently tell me a story about a customer that came into his dealership, and this dealership has been transitioning, like many dealerships, on used cars towards one price. New cars, they still allow negotiation, but used cars, they've tried to shift towards one price. And this customer came in trying to negotiate on the price of this used car, went from the salesperson to the desk manager to the GSM and to the GM, who's now relaying this story to me, and how he explained to the customer, listen, we're trying to take the negotiation out because we believe that customers don't actually want to negotiate, and we look at things like CarMax, and the car buyer eventually told him, he goes, look, don't be mad at me, because the GM was getting frustrated because he's trying to explain to the customer, look, this is a great price, and we've priced it to sell, and that's why we don't negotiate on it. And the customer said, don't blame me. You taught me that I have to negotiate. So don't get mad at me when this is what I've been trained. And so this is what's happening in the space right now. Customers don't want to negotiate. In fact, they hate negotiating. Now, granted, again, 20%, remember the 20% rule, 20% absolutely will want to negotiate. But the dealers tend to focus on that 20% because, frankly, it's easier to focus on price versus value. But buyers hate negotiating. In fact, when asked, they said it is their top source of frustration in the car buying process. What they really want is a competitive price. Another study, which I didn't include in today's presentation, but I think this was an Auto Trader. It was either Auto Trader or Dealer Track. But they found that 73% of customers said they will travel farther for a great salesperson. And that was compared with 65% that said they will travel farther for the lowest price. So more people are saying, I want a great experience, and that's what I equate to, than are saying, I want the best price. What they want is a competitive price. Again, 70% just don't want to pay more than their neighbor. They know that you're not the Red Cross. They know that you're not the library. They understand that you're in business to make money. They just don't want to overpay. They want a competitive price. And so you don't need to go to one price because the customer actually considers a low price to be the same thing as a transparent or fair price. They consider a transparent or fair price to be the same as a low price. So if you offer competitive pricing and you price consistently online and offline, you will build trust and rapport with your buyers. Again, you don't need to be one price, but you have to be fair. Again, it's the same thing that TrueCar is already doing. So I've got another quick poll. What is the main reason buyers choose one dealer over another? So when surveyed, why did customers say, hey, I chose dealer A over dealer B? The main reason is actually price transparency. So the number one differentiator between dealerships when consumers were asked was price transparency. And 90% of buyers said that they expected pricing transparency. And again, we all expect that as consumers. And again, it amazes me that this that wanted transparency into Google AdWords, Bing, and Facebook that helped make my last company one of the fastest growing companies in America and the fastest growing company in automotive at the time, don't want to provide transparency to their buyers. We need to shift our focus. We need to stop focusing on the 26% that will fill out a form link. We need to start focusing on the 74% that are trying to buy in anonymity, but don't feel confident yet that you're actually being fair or transparent. And that's not an overnight adjustment. And like I said, that growth curve, it's going to happen quick, right? Because again, we're seeing huge shifts in our space. But if we do it, if we embrace transparency, we can drive more profits. One of my favorite quotes, which again, I did not include in today's presentation, but there's a gentleman named Alex Boguski. Alex is one of the most decorated ad men of this century. For those of you that like the show Mad Men, think Mad Men in the 2000s. Clients like Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Burger King, right? I could have stopped at Coca-Cola. That's the most prized ad account in the world. I love this quote from him. He says, "Transparency is not a choice. The only choice is, do you participate in it or does it happen to you? Do you participate in it or does it happen to you?" As dealers, it's been happening to us. And it's been happening to us in the form of third parties like Auto Trader, Cars.com, TrueCar, Car Gurus. When you look at NADA data today, you can see that the average advertising cost to sell a car has not really changed since roughly 2005. When I first started looking at that data, it was roughly just over $600. It's the same today. The internet was supposed to provide us as dealers with a better advertising source that would be more effective and lower our advertising costs. But part of the promise of the internet is the promise to the consumer that you will have a better experience, a transparent experience. The average gross profit, on the other hand, has shrunk. Well, where has it gone? It's gone to the providers that are offering transparency. So we can actually drive profit if we are more transparent. 73% of American consumers say that they will pay more when a brand is transparent. And again, I'm going to just one more time, we want to focus on the majority, not the minority. Let's stop focusing on the 20% or the 26%. 73% of Americans say they will pay more for transparency. And when surveyed, 19,507 car buyers, they were asked the question, did you have access to realistic pricing and payment online? When the customer said yes to that question, on average, the dealership made $785 more. That's huge. Now, I want to unpack this a little bit. Some of the customers that said, yes, I had access to realistic pricing and payment didn't. I think most did, but some didn't. But I think more importantly, some of the customers that said, no, I didn't have access to realistic pricing and payment actually did, but they didn't believe. This is all about perception. If you make the customer feel comfortable, you build trust, you build credibility, you make more money. When I used to sell cars, when I worked retail inside a dealership, I used to tell my wife when I'd come home at night, the more the customer pays, the happier they are. For those of you that have sold cars, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And even some of you that haven't sold cars, you're familiar with this concept. The more the customer pays, the happier they are. My wife could never really wrap her mind around this. And in the industry, we kind of use the term a good deal is a state of mind to explain this. It's the same thing as we think about transparency on our websites, as we think about e-commerce. If 9 out of 10 car buyers say they're more likely to buy from a dealership that offers online checkout, but only 5% are doing it today, why not offer it? You're afraid of losing revenue, particularly F&I profit typically, but most of the customers aren't going to use it anyway. And even those that do, you're not going to see a drop, and we'll talk more about that as we continue to walk through this. 7 out of 10 customers say they'll buy more often if they can buy online. So 9 out of 10 say they'll more likely buy from a dealership that offers online checkout, but 7 out of 10 also buy more often. So isn't that the customer that you want to turn into the customer that buys more often? I mean, that's how car and leasing was born. Hopefully some of you are familiar with the old training company, Half a Car, who kind of started the whole leasing revolution, right? But that's one of the beauties behind leasing, right? Customers coming in every 3 years. 94% say they'll be more loyal to a brand that offers complete transparency. So again, creating lifetime customers. And so what we're seeing, and we'll talk more about this, is that when you use e-commerce and you do it right, you can actually increase your PVR by as much as $500. And we actually have one large dealer group, a top 10 mega dealer that we work with, that they're telling us that when a customer goes through online checkout, that they are actually seeing a $700 increase in PVR, and almost all of it is F&I profits. And this all comes from customer experience. How do you earn loyalty for life? Customer experience. It's the key. It's the key to everything. One of my dealer partners recently shared something with me that I've been using a lot lately, and I think all of us need to hear and we all need to absorb. He pointed out to me that customers are comparing their car buying experience in his dealership to the best experiences that they're having. To the best experience that they're having. They're not comparing it to the experience at the restaurant where they had average service, right? They're comparing it to Amazon, and they're comparing it to Apple. Because those are the best experiences that they're having. They're comparing it to Uber. Because that's a great experience. They're not comparing the car buying process to waiting in line to get a taxi. They're comparing it to the experience that they had when they first used Uber. So customer experience is the key to all of those things. So here at Drive Motors, we are constantly looking at 3 main companies, Amazon, Apple, and Google. I'm going to leave Google to the side for a minute. I want to talk about Amazon and Apple a little bit, though, because I think they have 2 things in common. One thing in common, sorry, that we need to all take from. There's 2 of them. They have 1 thing in common. So Steve Jobs in 1997 said that we need to start with the user experience and work our way backward to technology. And he was always user experience focused. That's the reason why Apple has really grown so much in our economy and in our world and in our daily personal lives. And Jeff Bezos has a similar concept at Amazon. He actually has many quotes that talk about the customer. I'll read a couple of them to you. For customers, it'll cover a lot of errors. But my favorite is the most important single thing is to focus obsessively on the customer. The most important single thing is to focus obsessively on the customer And then that particular quote goes on to say, our goal at Amazon is to be Earth's most customer-centric company. These are two of the most successful companies in the world, and both of them start with the customer first. They start with the user experience. They start with the customer, and then everything else falls into place. And again, Jeff Bezos said that if you focus on the customer, it will cover a lot of your errors. I think it's working for them. I think we need to take it and we need to breathe it. We need to sleep it. We need to live it. We have to think about our customer first. Buyers go out of their way for a better experience. You and I do it all the time. I'm here at Digital Dealer. I had to choose a hotel to stay at. I'm not at the Motel 6. That was the cheapest one. I actually don't know if Motel 6 was the cheapest one. I'm assuming it was. But I'm just saying, I chose a hotel that was going to be more comfortable. I'm paying more for a better experience. I tip more at a restaurant when I get a great experience. We do this every single day. We pay more for a better experience. Value matters more than price. And 86% of Americans say they will pay more for a better experience. One of our favorite stories at Drive Motors is a customer in Dallas for one of our dealerships. We had just launched this dealership. By the way, we launched them in 6 hours. They signed up 6 hours later. We had them live. That's how scalable our product is. Just one little plug there. But 52 minutes after we launched them, they got their first order. That was a record for us. So that was the first thing that we were like, wow. So we decided we wanted to have a conversation with this customer. The dealership decided they wanted to also be a part of this customer interview, if you will, so that they could leverage it for their own marketing. But we found some really interesting things in this conversation. This was a mother of 6 children who was also a chief financial officer at a company in Dallas. She told us she had been shopping for several months entirely online, had not even been into a dealership. She knew that she wanted a minivan, and she had decided already that she wanted a Dodge Caravan. She'd spent several months, like I said, she'd been on 14 Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram dealership websites. As soon as she saw the button, she said, this is perfect. She said, look, I've been shopping for 2 months. I didn't have time to go to the dealership, nor did I want to deal with that experience. The dealership delivered the car the next day to her office. They sent her a video of the Dodge Caravan leaving the dealership lot, telling her, hey, your car's on the way. She had an unbelievable customer experience, and she then told us, hey, I know I could have saved between $500 and $1,000 by going into one of the other dealerships and trying to negotiate. But this wasn't about price. It was about value. It was about experience. And by the way, she bought. So if we focus on the consumer experience, we can actually increase F&I profit. And I want to just really kind of quickly walk through, what does the typical F&I process look like? And why is that relevant to our conversation? A customer in your showroom says, yes, I want to buy this car. And let's just say it's a $30,000 car, right? So, you know, we could say 20, 40, whatever. Let's just say it's a $30,000 car. So they say yes to the $30,000 car. You say, great, sign this buyer's order, and then one of my coworkers is going to load everything into the computer, and then we'll take you to the F&I office where you can finalize your deal. So as the customer, I turn to my spouse, and we're waiting to go into the F&I office, and what do? I go, first of all, I'm going, are we making the right decision? We are, right? This is the right decision, right? You're having buyer's remorse as the car buyer, right? You're going, $30,000, that's a lot of money. And you're in the back of your mind, you're questioning a little bit. And then on top of that, you have the additional fear of, okay, what's this guy or gal in the F&I office going to try and sell me? And I already said yes to $30,000. So now I go into the F&I office, and they explain gap to me. I didn't know what it was, but what they said kind of made sense, but it's a car dealer. I don't know if I can trust them. I'm already still reeling from the $30,000. I'm going to say no. So that a customer that is exposed to F&I product before they go into the F&I box for F&I product. This has been proven time and again. So one of the things that we are doing in online checkout is we are exposing the customer to F&I product. So when they come into your dealership and you explain gap to them, they've already researched it because it was already offered to them online. They may or may not have decided to add it to the cart, but you still have another chance to explain it to them. And in that scenario, they're much more likely to go, you know what, that matches exactly what I read online, honey. So maybe we should go ahead and add it. So by exposing them, we actually help increase profit as well because we're letting them sell themselves. One of the things that we've had dealers ask us to do in our process is add links to videos and other information so that the customer can be sold on the product. What we have found is that has no change or no effect, on penetration. Why? Because the consumer goes, okay, this is a dealer website I'm on, and they have a video telling me why I should buy gas. This is biased. But they'll go out to another site, to an unbiased third-party site, and they'll do research on should I get gap insurance, should I get prepaid maintenance, etc. So we're exposing them to F&I product. And so this is going to help increase F&I revenue. We also see that when we give the consumer a great experience, that we can also increase service revenue in your service drive. Looking at the green here, look at the difference in the amount of spend in a service drive at a dealership where the customer was very dissatisfied with their car buying process versus the amount of spend when the customer is completely satisfied with the car buying process. One of the things I've learned in my time working with Lithia is that a customer that services with you but has never bought from you, so a customer that has service with you but has never bought from you, is more likely to buy from you than somebody that's already bought service with you. I want to repeat that one more time. A customer that's serviced with you but never bought from you is more likely to buy from you than somebody that's already bought from you but has never serviced with you. So if we give them a great buying experience, we see we can double the likelihood that they come and spend money in your service drive. We are getting closer and closer to that ever sought after lifetime customer. And we're building trust and loyalty, right? And they're more likely to add F&I upgrades. I just talked about that. They're more likely to use your service department. I just talked about that, right? They're going to become loyal customers. And we also know they're much more likely to refer new customers. And this is always the 10-to-1 conversation too, right? An unhappy customer will tell 10 people that they're satisfied when they bought the car. A happy customer will tell one customer, right? But look at the difference there, right? You don't want anybody out there saying that they had a negative experience. And when people are out there saying, hey, I had a great experience, you're more likely to get additional business. Warby Parker earlier, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into how they have customer and that experience the key to their success. Only Apple has a higher revenue per square foot than Warby Parker. So I think it makes sense for us to take a look at what they're doing. By the way, there's a quote from their CEO that I love. I may not get it exactly, but essentially he said, retail isn't dead. Mediocre retail is dead. Retail isn't dead. Mediocre retail is dead. So again, back to Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, right? The customer is comparing us to the best experiences. And because Warby Parker focused on that and said, how do we make a great retail experience? How do we offer a no-pressure environment? How do we offer transparency and provide a consultation? And this is where I really want you guys to think about this, and they offer multiple ways to try and buy. We have to give buyers the options to buy the way they want to buy. Because if you think about your own consumer behavior, if you can't buy something the way you want to buy it, what do? You move on. You go somewhere else. So Warby Parker, really, really interesting, and I think there's a lot as dealers that we can learn from them. So we were founded to help customers an easier, faster, more transparent online car buying experience. But from the beginning, we were founded to help dealers deliver this. We understood from the very moment that we were founded that the center is the dealer. And what I mean by that is that we don't believe that it is the responsibility of a third party to provide an easy, transparent, more convenient car buying experience. We don't think that the customer should have to go to TrueCar or Cars.com or AutoTrader to do it. We believe that the dealer is the center. We believe that the dealer needs to offer it. And what we've seen is an increase in PVR. What we've seen is more customer trust and loyalty, better CSI when somebody goes through online checkout. And we believe that dealers have been able to reduce their buyer that, hey, if you want a transparent online buying experience, that you need to leverage TrueCar or CarGurus or AutoTrader. See, they've been ahead of us as dealers, and it's time for us as dealers to catch up and understand that instead of letting transparency happen to us because third parties are going to provide it because it's what the customer wants, if we get out in front of it and provide it to the customer, then we can reduce our reliance on those third parties. These are some of our investors, just so you guys know, understand the resources that we have here at Drive Motors, which you can leverage to help provide this to your car buyers. Y Combinator. Y Combinator is essentially a boot camp for startups. So before Airbnb ever launched, they took an investment from Y Combinator and went through their boot camp. Same thing. And then all the way on the right, Kostler Ventures. Mr. Kostler was the founder of Sun Microsystem and the inventor of JavaScript. He sold Sun Microsystems to Oracle for billions upon billions. Where Instacart and Stripe, and so we're really proud to be one of the companies Kostler has invested in. So some of our customers, so Asbury, Lithia, Larry H. Miller, CarSense, which is a Penske-owned used car operation. And so the next step for those of you that want to learn more, how we do this, what this looks like, how we can help you sell more cars, win more customers, and increase profitability, you can go to drivemotors.com and request a demo. The first thing that you'll see when you get there. If you have a direct question for me, I'm happy to answer that. My email is matt@drivemotors.com.